Picture Rome at its height. Marble villas stretch across the Palatine Hill, their walls painted with mythological frescoes, their fountains murmuring in hidden gardens. Senators in white togas walk across stone courtyards, discussing laws, alliances, and betrayals. Soldiers return from distant provinces, their armor glinting in the sun. To the outside world, Rome is the beacon of civilization, disciplined, virtuous, and eternal. But behind those polished marble walls, another Rome exists. A Rome of shadows, where desire and decadence seep through every crack. A city where power is not only fought for on the Senate floor, but purchased in bedrooms, whispered about in candlelit corridors, and bargained away in hushed, forbidden acts. And at the very center of this hidden Rome lived an empress. Her name was Valeria Messalina, wife of Emperor Claudius, mother of his children, and if ancient sources are to be believed, the most scandalous woman to ever sit upon Rome's imperial throne. To some, she was a victim of rumor, maligned by senators eager to diminish a powerful woman. To others, she was the embodiment of excess itself, a woman whose appetite for pleasure knew no restraint, who treated the empire as her personal playground. Tonight, we enter her world. A world where marriage vows were discarded as easily as a silk garment. A world of secret brothels, elaborate disguises, drunken contests of indulgence, and whispered rituals that blurred the sacred and the profane. This is not the Rome of noble speeches or stoic philosophers. This is the Rome of Messalina. Valeria Messalina was born into privilege. She was of noble blood, tied to Rome's most powerful families, and from her earliest days she lived in the glow of marble palaces and political intrigue. Yet privilege in Rome was never simple. It was both a gift and a dangerous inheritance. Her youth is little recorded, but we can imagine her childhood within the polished halls of aristocratic estates. She would have grown accustomed to soft couches, golden ornaments, and silk garments imported from the East. She would have watched senators and generals bow to her family's power, and she would have understood, even as a girl, that her destiny was not her own to decide. In Rome, marriage was politics. Desire was strategy. Every bond was an alliance. Messalina's fate was sealed when she was chosen as the bride of Tiberius Claudius Drusus, better known simply as Claudius. Claudius was no soldier, no fiery orator. He had lived much of his life in the shadows of his own family, mocked for his stammer, his limp, and his perceived weakness. Few believed he would ever rule. But Rome has always thrived on unexpected turns. In the year 41 CE, Claudius was lifted onto the throne by the Praetorian Guard after the assassination of Caligula. And with Claudius came Messalina, now empress, still barely out of her teenage years, draped in purple silk, seated beside the new ruler of the world's greatest empire. From the moment she entered the palace as empress, Messalina learned quickly how power could be bent to her advantage. Claudius, dutiful and easily distracted by the details of governance, left much of palace life to her. Petitioners who wished for favors found that they often needed to speak not only to the emperor, but to the empress who shared his table. And Messalina did not waste the opportunity. She gathered allies, rewarded friends, and punished enemies. Senators whispered that she kept lists of those who pleased her and those who did not. But alongside politics, another pattern began to emerge. Rumors circulated of her beauty, hair dark and flowing, eyes said to hold both softness and cunning. Her presence was magnetic, her voice persuasive. Those who entered her chambers often left indebted, compromised, or entranced. In the beginning, her influence was subtle, concealed behind the formalities of Roman life. She dined beside her husband, offered smiles at public games, and appeared the dutiful wife and mother. Yet behind the curtains of her private apartments, another Messalina was awakening. She discovered that power could be exercised not only through decrees and alliances, but through the body, through intimacy, through desire, through the weaving of webs invisible to those who looked only at politics. Her rise was not marked by a single event, but by a slow transformation. From noblewoman to empress. From young bride to the hidden ruler of Rome's private world. And soon, her private appetites would begin to spill into the open, giving birth to the tales that would make her name infamous for centuries to come. To the Roman people, Messalina appeared every bit the empress. She sat beside Claudius during ceremonies, presided over lavish banquets, and oversaw her household with the dignity expected of the Augusta. Coins bore the emperor's face, but her presence was felt in every corner of the palace. Yet Rome was a city of masks, and no one wore theirs more skillfully than Messalina. Behind the silken curtains of her chambers, behind doors guarded by loyal attendants, she cultivated another life. A life of secrecy, indulgence, and abandon. Ancient historians, Tacitus, Juvenal, and Suetonius among them, wrote of her appetite, describing it not in gentle whispers but in scandalous detail. Whether every story was true or whether rumor exaggerated her deeds, the image remained fixed. Messalina was a woman whose desires overflowed every boundary set by custom or law. The most shocking tales spoke of her disguises. Cloaked in dark garments, her hair hidden beneath simple coverings, she would leave the palace at night and slip into the Subura, Rome's crowded and notorious quarter. There, among brothels and taverns, she shed the purple robes of empire and presented herself as an ordinary prostitute. In those dimly lit rooms, heavy with smoke and the scent of sweat and wine, the Empress of Rome sold herself for coin, competing with the city's common women not for money, but for sheer indulgence. Writers claimed she even engaged in contests, testing how many lovers she could take in a single night, never satisfied, never weary. By day she returned to the palace, washed, perfumed, and adorned in jewels, playing the role of empress once again as though nothing had transpired. Claudius, ever trusting, remained oblivious, or perhaps unwilling to see what others whispered. But her double life did not stop with her secret wanderings. Within the palace itself, Messalina began to build a world entirely her own. Apartments were converted into chambers of pleasure. Senators, knights, poets, even wives of Rome's nobility were drawn into her orbit. Some came willingly, lured by the promise of favor. Others found themselves coerced, unable to refuse the empress without risking ruin. In these hidden gatherings, wine flowed like water. Musicians played softly while dancers moved across mosaic floors. Rituals of intimacy blurred with performances of power. For Messalina, these were not merely acts of desire. They were acts of domination. To entangle a senator in her web was to hold leverage. To ensnare a rival's wife was to humiliate an enemy. This was her genius, the use of pleasure as a weapon, secrecy as a form of control. Her body became both a battlefield and a throne, from which she ruled a Rome unseen by the public eye. The double life of Messalina was more than indulgence. It was a system of power, carefully maintained, dangerously expansive. And like all systems built upon secrecy, it could not remain hidden forever. For Messalina, desire was never only about satisfaction. It was about control. Every encounter, every whispered invitation, every chamber door closed behind her became part of a carefully woven web. Inside the palace, she expanded her secret world. Ancient writers claimed she went so far as to establish a brothel of her own within the imperial residence. Behind guarded halls, noblemen and women alike were drawn into her service, not as guests but as participants in a spectacle that blurred the line between entertainment and entrapment. Imagine long corridors lit by flickering oil lamps. At the end of those halls, a chamber heavy with perfume, soft couches draped in silk, and curtains that concealed more than they revealed. Senators, men who argued fiercely in the Senate by day, were brought here at night, stripped not only of their garments but of their dignity. Messalina watched, invited, commanded. Those who obeyed were rewarded. A new office, a political favor, the avoidance of her wrath. Those who hesitated found themselves compromised, their secrets whispered back into their ears when they least expected it. Women, too, were not spared her attention. Wives of Rome's elite were said to have been drawn in, willingly or otherwise. Their presence deepened her power, for to control a man's wife was to control the man himself. Nothing in Rome was more dangerous than scandal, and Messalina held scandal like a blade at her side. This was not hedonism alone. It was strategy, a subtle empire built within the empire itself. Where Claudius governed laws and armies, Messalina governed secrets, appetites, and shame. Her reach extended beyond the palace walls. Courtesans and tavern keepers became her informants. Servants whispered in her ear. She knew which senator lingered too long at a banquet, which general gambled away fortunes, which noble youth was reckless in his indulgences. She collected these details like coins in a chest, ready to be spent when needed. Even religion was not untouched. Festivals devoted to Bacchus and Venus became excuses for excess. Sacred rites blurred with indulgence until the line between worship and pleasure dissolved entirely. Some whispered that she deliberately corrupted these rituals, twisting them into stages for her own displays, reducing what was holy to little more than theater for desire. To her enemies, she was a predator. To her allies, she was both opportunity and danger. To Rome itself, she was a force that could not be ignored. But power built upon secrecy always trembles at the edge of exposure. And in Messalina's case, it was not her nightly disguises, nor her hidden chambers, nor even her brothel of nobles that would bring her downfall. It was an act of ambition so brazen, so reckless, that even Claudius could no longer turn away. The empress who had weaponized desire would soon be undone by desire itself. For years, Messalina thrived in secrecy. Her excesses were whispered about in corridors, her appetite joked about in taverns, but Claudius, trusting, distracted, or perhaps willfully blind, remained loyal to her. As long as her indulgences remained in shadow, her power endured. But secrecy breeds arrogance. And arrogance in Rome was always dangerous. Among Messalina's many lovers, one man began to rise above the rest, Gaius Silius. He was handsome, ambitious, and politically well-placed. More importantly, he was bold enough to imagine that his intimacy with the empress could be transformed into something greater. Messalina and Silius did not remain content with stolen moments in hidden rooms. Their affair grew into something audacious, reckless, and ultimately fatal. According to ancient historians, Messalina took the extraordinary step of marrying Silius, while still wed to Claudius, Emperor of Rome. It is difficult to imagine the scale of this act. Rome was no stranger to infidelity, but to conduct a public wedding while still empress was unthinkable. Some have argued that it was symbolic, a ritual meant to bind their union in the eyes of allies. Others believed it was a genuine attempt to overthrow Claudius, replacing him with Silius as emperor and herself as his partner. Whatever the motive, the effect was the same. It was an open challenge to the throne. The wedding itself was said to have been elaborate. Guests filled the halls. Music, feasting, and laughter echoed through the city. Vows were exchanged as if Claudius did not exist. To the Romans who witnessed it, the message was clear. Messalina no longer feared discovery. She believed herself untouchable. But she had underestimated the men around Claudius. Chief among them was Narcissus, a freedman who served as the emperor's secretary. Where Claudius hesitated, Narcissus acted. He gathered proof of the union, assembled allies, and confronted the emperor with the truth. Claudius, stunned and humiliated, could no longer look away. The whispers that had followed him for years had hardened into undeniable betrayal. His empress, the mother of his children, had not only dishonored him but mocked the very dignity of his rule. Messalina sensed the danger too late. She fled to the gardens of Lucullus, surrounded by allies who urged her to plead with Claudius for mercy. There, amidst fountains and statues, she waited for word, hoping that the softness of her husband's heart would once again shield her. But this time, Claudius did not come. This time, Narcissus came in his place. That in the gardens of Lucullus, Messalina lingered. It was autumn, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and fading blossoms. The marble statues stood silently, pale and indifferent, as though watching a play whose ending they already knew. Those who remained loyal urged her to act. Some advised her to go directly to Claudius, to throw herself at his feet as she had done before, and trust that his forgiving nature would rescue her once more. Others urged her to flee Rome entirely, to abandon wealth and power for the chance of survival in exile. But Messalina seemed paralyzed, caught between the grandeur of what she had been and the ruin that now awaited her. Perhaps she still believed in her own invincibility. Perhaps she thought that Claudius, who had overlooked so much, would overlook this as well. Inside the palace, Claudius wavered. His first instinct, even after all that had happened, was to hear her out. But Narcissus knew that hesitation could mean disaster. He pressed for action, reminding the emperor of the insult, the mockery, the danger of leaving her alive. While Claudius dined in uneasy silence, Narcissus acted. He dispatched soldiers to the gardens with orders to end the empress's life. The sound of their arrival carried through the hedges, the steady rhythm of boots upon gravel, the faint clink of armor. Messalina realized then that the moment of decision was no longer hers. Accounts differ on what followed. Some say she begged, her words tumbling over themselves as she pleaded for mercy, for one more chance. Others claim she fell into silence, resigned at last to the fate that had drawn ever closer. When the soldier's sword was raised, Messalina's life ended not with spectacle, but with quiet inevitability. The empress who had once ruled Rome through desire and cunning was gone, leaving behind only whispers, accusations, and the uneasy silence of those who had served her. Back in the palace, Claudius was informed during his meal. He is said to have reacted with little more than a nod, asking that the wine be refilled and the music continue. Whether this was indifference, shock, or simple exhaustion, no one could say. Rome moved on as it always did. Another name entered its long history of scandal and intrigue, another life extinguished in the endless struggle for power. Yet the memory of Messalina lingered. For generations, she remained a symbol of unrestrained desire and reckless ambition. Her name was invoked not in admiration, but in warning, an example of how even the most powerful can be undone when appetite outpaces caution. And so, the tale of Messalina draws to a close. Her life, filled with indulgence, ambition, and scandal, ended not with triumph but with silence in a Roman garden. She became one more figure in the vast sweep of history, remembered, judged, and retold, but gone all the same. As we leave the marble halls of ancient Rome behind, notice the contrast with the world around you now. No schemes whispering through candlelit corridors. No footsteps of soldiers echoing across stone. Only the stillness of your own room, the safety of your own time, the quiet that gently surrounds you. History reminds us of the fragility of power, of the fleeting nature of desire, and of the many lives that once seemed larger than life but are now little more than stories. Messalina once believed herself untouchable, yet even she faded into memory. And if such towering figures could vanish into the past, then the small worries of today are lighter still, soon to drift away like smoke in the evening air. Breathe slowly. Let the rhythm of your breath become the rhythm of this moment. The Romans are gone. Their scandals are gone. Even their empires are dust. What remains is the comfort of the present, the quiet, steady calm of now. As you close your eyes, allow the voices of the past to soften, to grow faint, to dissolve entirely. Let the heavy marble palaces give way to the gentle walls around you. Let the restless intrigues of Messalina's Rome slip into silence. You are safe. You are at rest. And the story, like the day, is finished.